Welcome to the Creative James Media YouTube channel, and thanks so much for tuning in today for what is the first of many interviews with some of our amazing authors here at Creative James Media. Today, we're going to be talking with Diane about her upcoming book, Superficial, as well as life, writer's block, just whatever we can get into today. So, without further ado, Diane, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm super excited to be the first interview.
Of course. I mean, you're the first release on the schedule, so how could we not? Um, Also, I'm kind of biased because it's superhero-ish, so I had to.
I love
um,
that.
why don't you introduce yourself a bit to everybody?
Sure. So I'm Diane Billas. Um, I live in the Philadelphia area with my husband and my son. My debut YA sapphic romance, Does Love Always Win, came out last year with Creative James Media. And like Matt said, I have an upcoming YA superhero book called Superficial coming out in September.
So let's talk about Superficial. What Tell us a bit about the book, kind of what inspired the book and what people can expect.
Sure. I have it right here.
Yes, there we go.
I am in love with this cover by Triumph Covers. It's amazing.
It is a wonderful
Um,
cover.
so I love superheroes and Marvel, and I went to a Comic-Con convention in Philadelphia, I think in like 2017, and I just had such a great time. And when I was querying Does Love Always Win, I was doing like one of those Twitter pitch events or something, and I was taking a look at everyone's pitches, and I was like, "Oh, they have so many cool things that they're like surrounding their book around, like baking competition, reality television show." I'm like, well, what do I like that I could write a book about? And that's when I came up with the idea of having a book centered at a Comic-Con convention in Philadelphia.
Right.
So the book, like I said, is set in Philadelphia with a Comic-Con convention. It's set in a dual perspective. The main two characters in the beginning of the book get stuck in an elevator at this Comic-Con convention. The one main character is a fan just there to attend the Comic-Con convention, and the other person is called the Amazing Boy, Jake Johnson. He's there at the Comic-Con convention as the star of the show, as the actor who's the Amazing Boy. So they're stuck in this elevator, and they finally are able to escape, and everyone from the convention has disappeared. Thousands and thousands of people are just gone. So they have to try to figure out where all of the attendees have gone. And on top of that, a villainous pirate and a shapeshifter start stealing artifacts all around Philadelphia. So they have to team up in a race against time to find out what happened to the attendees at the conference and also figure out where all of these artifacts are going.
I think I saw it. Right. I think it was you that said it, but it was kind of think Marvel versus like National Treasure
Yes.
kind of vibe, because that's what that gives me when you're like when you said Philadelphia, I'm like, okay, so that tracks. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to read it. What kind of besides like the superheroes, what else? And was there anything else in particular that kind of inspired this? Because your first book um, is kind of a whole different uh, genre vibe, I guess you could say,
It
than
really is. It's
Superficial.
completely different. Um, it's funny, I'm a pantser, and I just like get an idea and I just run with it. And so I came up with the idea of the Comic-Con convention and just started writing. I had no idea the superheroes were going to be a part of it and that there was going to be suddenly magic and fantasy. And I was like, because I've never written anything like that before. It just kind of happened. And I was like, well, this is fun. And I really enjoyed it. So I just kept going with it.
Are you one of those people that if an idea comes into your head, if you don't get it out, it'll drive you nuts?
Oh, yeah. And I need to like at least start writing some of it because
Right.
I don't want to forget it either, especially if I think it's
Exactly.
like I'm going to be really excited by it.
Yeah, it seems to be a dual-edged sword, honestly, because I get the same thing. It's like it may turn out to be nothing, but just in case, let's get it done.
Absolutely.
You don't want to miss out on an idea that could have been something.
For
Um,
sure.
was there a particular character for you in Superficial that was harder to write than the others?
So Jake The Amazing Boy was definitely harder for me. I was not expecting to write this in a dual perspective. I was going to just have it in the main character Lay's perspective, but then suddenly it just made more sense to have it part of it from Jake's point of view, and that was hard. I've never written first person for a guy before, so that one was a little bit more difficult. My husband is always my first reader, and I gave it to him, and he was just like, yeah, some of the stuff a guy wouldn't say. So it was really helpful to have that feedback.
That's important. I mean, it's at least he was able to be like, okay, look, we gotta change this a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you say this was a quick write for you, or did it take quite a while to get it just the way you want it?
I'd say so. I had some beta readers read it. And before that, it was pretty quick to write it. But they said that the ending just didn't work. And I'd never written action scenes before. And I could see what they were saying. So I completely rewrote the whole ending. Like there was I changed 50 pages of it. And I Googled how to write action scenes. And they suggested using your setting as a key. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And so that part was pretty hard. But before that, I was able to get things down pretty fast.
So would you say now that you've written those action scenes, do you think you're more comfortable doing something like that more in the future?
I think so. It's still not my favorite though. It was really hard. I think I'm more a dialogue person.
I'm the same way, honestly. It's easier for me to write conversations than it is to kind of piece things together. It kind of almost seems, when I go back and read it, it kind of almost seems awkward. You're like, oh, yeah. Is this going to be okay?
And I have to make sure, I'm trying to picture it in my head to make sure it's working out okay. And I'm like, this person hit this hitting and there, and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a weird one sometimes. Honestly, action is just a whole different thing in of its own if it's something you're not used to.
Yeah, really is.
Switch gears kind of and talk. I want to talk about writer's block. Was this something that you experienced a lot during the writing of Superficial, or is it something that you even struggle with in general during your writing?
Sometimes I get it. Not with Superficial. Usually once I have an idea that I really enjoy, I'm pretty good. After Superficial was done, that's when I got writer's block, because I had just had a kid. And so my brain was all over the place. I still had I was not getting any sleep. So I was working on 5 different projects and none of them were sticking. But so one way that I try to overcome it is I play the French horn and the piano. Okay. So playing the piano really helps me think about things, able to play and think, and then maybe an idea pops into me. Or you just never know, going on a walk or exercising, something like that.
Yeah, music seems to be one of those things that no matter I don't want to say ailing you, whatever's bothering you, whatever's blocking whatever track you're trying to complete, it seems to be one of those things universally that kind of can just melt it away. I've heard that from so many people. In your opinion, what elements and what things make a good story?
Yeah, obviously the plot, but you have to have really well thought out characters. You want to be able to connect with them and empathize with them, and just be able to see them on the page. Those are the main 2 things that come up right off the top of my mind.
Right. Because I know a lot of people have different opinions on, you got to focus on your characters first, or you got to focus on your plot first. But I think if you have a plan for one, then if you just get one done, the rest will kind of start to fall in line for you, and it'll make it easier to write. When writing a project, do you ever set daily or weekly word counts for yourself? And if you do, is it beneficial for you, or does it seem to not make any difference?
I actually don't do that. I know a lot of writers do. I dedicate 7 in the morning to 9 in the morning for my writing or marketing or anything like that. So I try to get as much as I can accomplished in that time, because I know that's the only time I'm going to have that day. And that actually kind of helps me out not having like a goal, because sometimes I get stressed out about that and my work's not as good that way. So I don't know. For me, it doesn't work having a goal.
Right. And I hear that from many people too. It's either, oh, I have to have a goal in order to get things done, or if I just set a chunk of time, it makes it easier because you don't have to, like, oh, I have to get so many words. It's, I have X amount of hours to kind of think and put down exactly what we want instead of writing and erasing 5,000 times.
Yeah, I think it helps too, because I know that I don't have as much time anymore to focus on writing, that I'm like, all right, I better get it done now, or I'm never going to get it done.
Right. Yeah, that's, whether it's kids or jobs or, whatever it may be, that seems to be the hindrance these days,
Yeah.
finding the quiet time, as I like to say, because there's time and there's quiet time, and they're two different things.
They are very different.
How do you deal with bad reviews and feedbacks on your book?
Yes.
Books, more than one.
They always say don't look at your reviews, but I have come to the conclusion that I am a person who is going to look at them, and I can't help myself. So I am okay with that. And if I see a bad review, I just kind of like, you know what? It's not for everybody. It's fine. And sometimes you just might learn something from a bad review too. And also feedback. In my day job, I actually am a writer too. I do development writing. So I get feedback all the time on my writing there. And I think I'm just used to it. And I don't need people to be like sugarcoat things. Just tell me what you like or don't like. I'd rather just hear it that way.
Right. I'm the exact same way, because I had somebody read my book and they're like, well, do you want to hear all of what I think? Or is it going to sour our friendship? I'm like, no, I want to know everything. And like, what is it that you dislike? What is it leaving you with questions? What can I answer for you that will help you understand whatever, the problem is. So
exactly. I'm always trying to grow. And so if people have feedback that help me become a better writer, I'm all for it.
Exactly. And I think that's the aim, though, honestly. In our journeys as a writer, if you get to a point where you don't think that you can grow anymore, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because I think we can kind of all, maybe not, necessarily major things, but there's always something that we can pick up, whether it's, with our writing, our editing, or ideas on how to form things. But there's always something.
Absolutely.
Who are some of your favorite people to read, and what books of theirs?
Yeah. So Becky Alboretti, I love all of her books. She's one of the reasons I actually wrote Does Love Always Win and felt comfortable doing so. Simon versus the Homo Sapien Agenda was the first like queer book that I saw that like received like mainstream attention. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so people are reading this. This is a good thing. And her most recent book that I loved was Imogene, obviously. And it was, I really wished I had that when I was in high school.
Right.
And I also like Sophie Gonzalez, Perfect on Paper. It's another YA queer book, but that one has like a male-female pairing with a bi main character. And that's the first time I've ever seen that. And that's one of the reasons why I felt comfortable writing Superficial, with the main character being pansexual and demisexual and being with a male-female pairing. Because I was like, there are more of us like that out there. And there's so many times that people tell us like it's not a queer story if it's actually like paired up heterosexually. But I'm like, it is still queer, and people can identify that way. So that's why I felt comfortable writing Superficial the way it is, because of Perfect on Paper.
Right. And I think now, especially now, it's becoming more common for people to write like that. And I agree with you on that too. It's the point of, just because they're paired up with someone who's heterosexual, it doesn't mean that it's not still a queer-based story. Because if your main character, if you have two main characters, if one of them is queer, then it's still a queer-based story. So I do hear mixed things on that all the time. It's like, well, it's not if it's not this, but if you're not the writer, you don't know what it's intended to be, is what I like to tell people.
Exactly. It's still from their point of view, and they're queer. So
Exactly. And so I think that's what people tend to forget about books these days,
Mhm.
is that it's not necessarily always a super made up story. It's that person writing something that, has kind of been on their mind or happened in their life that maybe they're trying to process. So you have to take it with an open mind and perspective when consuming. Um, I don't know if I asked, but what is the most recent book that you've read that has
Uh,
been, you're like, okay, this has captured my attention. I loved it.
yeah, so funny you say that. I just finished an arc of Hall of Shadows by Mariah Stillbrook, who is a
Oh, okay.
CGM author, and that's coming out in November through CGM, and I loved it. I've never read a book like it in my life. I don't usually read YA horror, but it wasn't like that scary. I'd say there was a lot of there's things about like bitches and like a lot of fantasy elements in it too. Um, the main character, her mom and grandmother just got mugged and got killed, and
Wow.
she got bequeathed her grandmother's flat in New York City, and somehow gets these cursed deck of oracle cards and gets sucked into this hall of shadows where she has to overcome 13 dimensions of shadow work, and it is really interesting. I really recommend that when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put that on my list. I just recently got my copy of In the Pines, so I'm gonna start
Oh yeah,
on
that's a
that one
good
pretty
one.
soon. Yeah,
I also love The Lost Irvine too.
I'm just getting caught up on all y'all's books. I've only had a few. I've got most of Kate's and Sean's. So I'm like, okay, it's time to venture out in categories that I haven't read yet, and see what's out there. Because I'm one of those people. It's like, if it's not a genre that I'm really into, I find it hard to read. So it's like,
Yeah,
unless it really grabs my attention, it's hard to stick with, and I don't want to pick it up and then be like, and then put it down, because you got to keep reading. So it's like, let's just see what's out there. Let's see what's good.
that's the fun thing about being an author and being asked to like write blurbs for arcs and everything. I've read so many books I never would have otherwise read that I've like fallen in love with, because I don't usually read fantasy or horror or anything like that, but I've started doing it because of being an author.
Yeah, that's mine. Was, I started working. This is my second publishing company that I've worked for, and so that's when I really started to kind of see and take interest in other genres, because it's like I'm getting to talk with the authors about their work and kind of,
Mhm.
see their passion for their work and the genre that they're writing in. And I think that's one thing that can kind of be beyond a blurb and a book cover. If you're able to sit down and talk with an author and see their excitement and see, the joy that their writing and pieces brought to them, I think it kind of pushes more people to read it, because they can see, the excitement. They can see kind of what it's about and what it means to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, this one's probably super easy for you, but do you have a go-to snack or beverage when it's writing time?
Oh my gosh. Well, since I do all my writing in the morning, I say coffee, but I don't drink caffeine. I drink decaf actually. Um, caffeine just makes me too jittery, but I love the taste of coffee, so I do decaf.
Right. That seems to be the common answer. It's either coffee or tea. I rarely get anything else. Well, sometimes water, but other
I
than
was gonna
that, I
say
don't.
maybe like later in the evening if you want some
Right.
scotch or something.
Exactly. Bust out a bottle of whiskey or bourbon, and I'm okay. um, have you started setting up any signings or book tours for Superficial yet?
I have, yeah. So my book launch is going to be at my local library, Upper Dublin Public Library. I'm going to be in conversation with an award-winning author. She's a middle grade author, Laura Parnham. She's local to Philadelphia. So that is on September 27th at 7 p.m. I'm super excited, and people can come dressed up as a superhero and get entered to win a free copy of Superficial.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then on October 12th, I have a signing at a indie bookstore called Booked in Philadelphia and Chestnut Hill.
So for everybody watching, I will put links in the description so you guys can check out her socials and keep up with where these events are going to be and more as they unfold, just so you don't have to go back and search through the video to find them. Last couple questions here for you. This one, I know it's going to be hard, but what is one of your favorite things about working with CJM?
I love how it's so personalized, and because it's a small publisher, the main publisher, Jean, she is so readily accessible. So I'm able to, if I have a question, just easily send her a message, and I don't have to go through anyone else to do that.
Right.
I also love the cover designs. My cover designs have just been amazing, and being able to work with the cover designer to get something I want, rather than just being handed a cover and saying, "Here, this is what it is." We actually have a stake in the design of it. So those are definitely my favorite things.
Favorite things. To wrap things up, what has been your favorite things about the process of getting Superficial ready for the world?
Yeah, I think hearing what people think about it, like my ARC reviews, people were just like sending me messages and DMs that they enjoyed it so much, and that it's like different than anything that they've ever read before. It just has me like really excited to put it out there and see what people think.
Yeah, I think that for me is one of the hardest things too, is because you're like, are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? What's the feel, when you start getting the feedback from them, and it's like, you kind of get in your own mind a little bit, and you're like, oh, and then they're like, no, I loved it. This is great. And then, so I think that's definitely the fun part, is kind of, it's nerve wracking, but once it's out into the world, you're like, okay, the hard part's done. Now we're just.
I know. Well, and it's also because, like you said, it's so different than my first book. So I don't want people expecting like a sapphic romance and then getting a superhero book.
Right. Yeah. Go into it expecting, you're like, oh,
This is not it.
not what I expected.
I don't know. Every time I write something, it's always something new and unique. Like right now, I'm writing a young adult murder mystery. I always like to keep things very different.
Right. Yeah. And I know they'll be like, oh, I can only write one genre. And then you got people who are like, no, if I've got an idea, no matter what genre it is, if it's a good story, I'm going to get it out. And then, you're getting 5, 6, 7 different genres and categories from one person, which I think is great, because it shows that you are an expansive writer, and you're not just limiting yourself to one particular thing. You're venturing out to be like, okay, I'm more than my sapphic romance. I'm more than my young adult. And there's more to offer. So
yeah, and I kudos to people that do just like write one thing. I just like, I feel like my writing is stale when I do that. I can't do it.
yeah, it can get that way. I'll be honest. I mainly write crime fiction mystery, and I can tell you,
Okay.
it it does get kind of stale sometimes. But then you find yourself, you depending on the story, you find yourself being like, okay, I just got to finish this because I started the idea,
Right.
and then you get feedback, and then you just change it, and then it kind of, you find a new category. You're like, oh, I didn't think I could put it in that category, and so then you just kind of expand your reader base. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today and talking about Superficial. It's been a fun time. And you guys, I will leave the links down below. Be sure to go and get ready to pick up the book when it is available, and follow her on all of her socials to keep up with what's new. Diane, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Have a great rest of your day.